three different authorities. It is always subjectable to complexities and also the disputes. That is exactly what will happen and what happened and what is going to happen in real estate. Because if you take the sale of material, VAT authorities or sales tax authority says in construction transaction, the material component in your transaction, sale of flat, they says the 60% is the material value, whereas same transaction service tax authority says 70% is the service component. That means in a way it is there themselves together they are taxing 130% of the transaction where you get only 100 rupees. Thereby there is a double taxation. Not only this VAT and service tax fight between VAT and service tax, there is third element is stamp duty. So beyond this entire value, they are levying stamp duty, saying that you sold the building and which is liable for stamp duty. Thereby, before GST, it is highly subject to by impliedly or expressly, it is subject to high taxes. Though we perceive it as a 5% service tax or 1%, 1.25% VAT or 6% or 7% stamp duty, it is coming together, it is going beyond 12% or 13%. That is where the entire complexity has come, and every dispute starts with where this kind of complexities are there. To limited extent of bifurcation between still has come under GST, that is land component. Thereby that the separation of land component, that is non-taxable component from the transaction, is subject to disputes. So we'll cover how that dispute will germinate and how it can be handled, how it can be better developed in the course of law. So then, so that is one more important point. Then because of this complexity, there if we see Supreme Court as well as service tax, all high courts and Supreme Court been disputing and giving a lot of decision this service tax and VAT. So because of this complexity, these decisions are coming and there is a lot of litigation is going on. So we'll see how that the disputes are partly addressed in GST and partly not addressed and partly rules that can crop up under GST. Then now come to GST law. As I was saying, in GST there is only single type of taxable event, that is supply. That supply may be goods, supply may be services. For real estate sector, they are saying supply everything will be supply of services. As I was saying, the land was again excluded from the GST. Thereby there is a schedule 3 where it says sale of land or sale of building which is out of GST. So how would this exclusion because virtue of Schedule 3 will have impact, we'll see in the coming slides. Then if you see that scene number 5 sub clause B, it has a background. What it says is it deems that whatever the construction done or any amount if you receive prior to receipt of occupancy certificate will be deemed as a supply of services. Now the question is why this is required and why they have to do this delimitation. It has its own background. If you look at conceptually any real estate sector, for example, if you are constructing and selling a flat, so you will be keep on taking advance and you will be executing saving only at the time of handover or at least at the time of completion of the project. There the argument that has come is, see, who is the owner doing the construction? Is the customer or the builder? If you look at legally, the customer is not the owner till he gets the same deed. So there the argument was taken is, so it is nothing but a construction whatever I am doing, it is for the developer and it is for the builder, so it is self-service and I am not liable for service tax. That was the argument that was there in service tax regime. So to overcome this issue, in service tax the same delimitation was created where they said, no, I don't look at your self-service concept and all that. As long as if you receive any penny amount, any small amount, be it 1 rupee or 1 crore, before completion certificate from any customer, that transaction with the customer is deemed to be services and you have to pay service tax. The same deemed fiction was continued under GST, but though that same copy paste was made, but they have made some mistake in not making this deemed fiction under supply definition. They made this deemed fiction under the classification. So to this extent, this deemed fiction may not help the government to say that to overcome self-service, But this argument is only required when, when we are facing the liability itself. I think otherwise we can avoid this argument. But what I'm trying to say is that still there is a chance to say that the builder or developer, he is doing a self-service and he is constructing for himself, and there is service only after the execution of agreement with the customer. That argument and that possibility of not paying GST is still possible. If anybody is either not paid GST or don't want to pay GST, they can explore this argument. However, this is very subjective to litigation. They have to have a patience to fight till the end of the Supreme Court. And this is how they made the law. And as you all are aware, initially GST was levied on the total sale value with a land deduction of 1/3. So they ineffectively they are saying 12% your GST rate, and whatever the input you are saying, whether it is material or services, anything, whatever GST charged on that is eligible for the input tax credit. That is what the law is. So 12% with full input tax credit. That is the initial days of GST, where they told 12% with full input tax credit. Now there was issues with the government in the implementation of this 12% scheme. Now if you look at any customer, he says earlier before GST I am paying only 5% service tax or 6% service tax and 1.25% VAT. So that means in a way it's almost 6% general tax. But you are after GST you are asking 12%. That means you are double the tax. The stamp anyway is lying as is. So the perception in the market and in the retail customer is that government is collecting 12% GST on my own house. So there is a lot of resistance and a lot of opposition has come from the customer saying that they are eating 12% GST from the to give the space for living. So there is a lot of their government also tried to clarify no 12% is not a exact rate. If you consider the input tax credit, if you factor the input tax credit, net cash payment in the hands of builder would come down to below 5%, below 3%, below 4%. So net effective rate, in fact, after GST will come down. So you ask your builder to pass on the input tax credit and charge only balance amount. That is being clarifications, and they have given 2-3 press releases and try to impress that GST rate has come down after GST, and they try to impress that government is not taking any extra money after GST. But this kind of press release and circulars are subject to very interpretation, and every builder keeps saying that no, I don't have that much ITC to pass on, so you pay me 12% indirect tax and used to collect. So thereby there is still customers are not happy and people are not happy. They are cursing the government and saying that you reduce the GST and all. So that is where they have decided, let's not get into all this asking for passing of input tax credit and threatening with them anti-profiteering. We can't administrate and they can't go to every builder in the India who are in lakhs of people. They can't go and ask everybody to pass on. So what they felt is, instead of getting into this kind of approach, they have taken a shortcut approach. That means they have put one simple rate and say that this is the flat rate and you pay this rate and no input tax credit and everything has to pay cash. So that way they want to ensure that their revenue, whatever they are getting before GST, they are getting. At the same time, they are also giving impression to the customers in the India that they are only charging 5%, not the 12%. That is how the story behind this bringing this 5% scheme or 1% for affordable scheme. Now we will see what is the 5% or 1% scheme. This is the scheme has come from. For a better reiteration, it has come from 1st April 2019, and this has introduced through notification number 3 of 2019. So this scheme can be divided into 2 parts. One is affordable housing or non-affordable housing. If it is affordable housing, the GST rate is 1%. If it is non-affordable, then it is 5%. So what is affordable housing? Affordable housing is, it was defined saying that the area, if it is a non-metro, 90 square meter, if it is metro, 60 square meter, plus the sale concession should not exceed 45 lakhs. If these twin conditions are satisfied, then it is affordable housing and your GST rate on your flat or villa will be 1%. If these conditions are not satisfied, it will become non-affordable housing, then the rate would be 5%. So this is the sum and substance of output liability on the builder with effect from 1st April 2019. So whenever any new scheme comes, there is a scope that what I have to do for the ongoing or transition issues. To that, government has come with a scheme that if you want to continue for the ongoing projects, you can continue. Otherwise, by default, you have to go into the new scheme of 5% or 1%. That means for continuation of the 12% with full credit, they are given option. That option has to be exercised within such a specified time limit. Otherwise, by default, you go into the new scheme of 5% or 1%. This is the overall scheme of 5%. Of course, any scheme comes with some conditions. These are the conditions, what it says. First and foremost condition is that no ITC to the builder. No ITC to the builder. And so everything 5% or 1% has to be paid in cash. So these are the conditions. First and foremost. First and foremost condition is that. First and foremost condition is that no ITC and everything has to be paid in cash. Second condition is that suppose if you are it is ongoing project and if you want to shift to 5%, that means you come to 5% or 1% scheme, then what they are told, they are given a mathematical calculation where you have to reverse the ITC as per that formula. So that is second condition. That means they want to ensure that whoever coming for ongoing projects also whoever coming to new scheme, they have to reverse that pertaining to that flats which are taxed at 5%. So they want to give the credit for the flats which are taxed at 12% in the old regime. That is the formula. For this, they are given Annex 1 and Annex 2. And the third important condition is that which is very important and practical also. The people are facing very difficulties in complying with this condition. The important condition is that so the moment you say you don't get any input tax credit, there is every possibility that builder or any person goes and buy the or take the services from the person who don't charge GST at all. So it is going to create a black and white transaction, and sort of gray economy is going to create. So to avoid this condition, this situation, they said, though I am not allowing you to take any full input tax credit, they said you have to procure your 80% of inputs or input services from registered taxable persons under GST. So you have to procure goods or services from registered persons, and that should be the 80% of your total procurements, be it services or inputs or raw materials. In every financial year, this condition has to be fulfilled. Now the question comes is, what if there is a shortfall? Any shortfall is to the extent of 80%, that has to be paid under reverse charge. If it is goods, 18%. If any goods or services, it is 18%. There is some exception to this. If it is cement or capital goods, that has to be paid. That has to be totally 100%. You have to procure it, and there is no condition of 80% or relaxation to the extent of 20%. You procure it from registered persons. So cement and capital goods you have to procure totally from registered persons only. So this is another important condition. I think shortfall I told. Then this is unlike all regular procurements, which is every financial year we have to do. Whereas in case of cement, it is not financial year 80%. 80% we have to look at. Anyway, cement is 100%. So here cement we have to do monthly basis. Any shortfall is there, every month we have to pay reverse charge and get whatever the rate applicable to cement. So 28% is the GST rate applicable to cement. Wherever you procure cement from uninsured taxable persons under GST, without GST, you have to pay under reverse charge by the builder. Another important point is, so the moment you say 80% in a financial year have to fulfill, there is a possibility that if person who is executing more than one project, they may club and they may claim this 80% is fulfilled. So to avoid that also they made a condition saying that these conditions has to be fulfilled project wise, not the company as a whole or state as a whole. It is every project. That means project wise records they have to maintain and fulfill this condition. And another important point is that it is not that you procure and keep it in your record, your books of accounts. These disclosures has to be made in GSR 3B. That means in a particular month, how much procurements you have made, be it goods or services, how much you have procured from any registered persons, how much ITC you are foregoing, has to be reported in GSR 3B of taxable person every month. That means as a builder, while filing GSR 3B, though we will not be taking the input tax credit, we have to report to the government to give a picture that we are losing this input tax credit. And the another important condition is that for the persons who are wanted to continue under old scheme of 12% and avail full input tax credit for the ongoing projects, there is a condition that it is not it will be open forever. They said before 20th May 2019, if you want to continue the old scheme under 12%, you have to give a declaration in Annex 4 to the commissioner. So then only you are eligible for a continuation under the old scheme. That is one of the condition. We'll see if it is not complete, how it can be handled. But as per the notification, if you don't give a declaration, as per the notification, you by default you get into the 5% scheme and you should not take any input tax credit, and you end up paying everything in cash, and you have to reverse the input tax credit whatever you availed for the period after 1st April 2019. So far whatever I told about 5% or 1% is for the real estate, residential real estate project. Suppose if there is a commercial project, then this 5% 1% is not available. You continue under the regular scheme of 12% and you are eligible for the full input tax rate. That means there is no change happens for the projects which are purely commercial space. So for those cases you continue under regular scheme of 12% and you end up taking full input tax credit, you can take full credit. However, there are some restrictions which come to that. Now question comes is what if there is a mix of it? That means now every real estate project has a combination of commercial space as well as residential project. Then how that has to be handled? This was also answered by the scheme. What they say is the 15% if the commercial project area is not if the area of the commercial project is not exceeding 15%, then also even commercial area also will be eligible for the 5%. Otherwise, if it is exceeding more than 15%, then it goes to the 12%. You can eligible for the full input tax credit. So that is another mix of the condition which they have identified. This is nothing but a comparison of the old and new scheme. So I think rates, we have given a rates, so we can skip. And another change happened from 1st April 2019 is that initially there is a I think this I told. Yeah. Another important condition is that earlier there is a concept called when we come to the JDA we will discuss better. There is also reverse charge imposed on the developer on the liability of the landowner on transaction of transferring development rights. How it has to be paid and at what it has to be paid, in what cases it is liable, in what cases developer is not liable. We'll see detailedly when come to there is separate slides on the joint development. So we'll see at that time. That is also one of the condition that has come this 5% scheme. So we start with the practical issues. So far I have discussed the legal provisions so that to give a refreshing of the provisions so that you will also get when referring to some issues, so you will get also able to easily recollect. Otherwise, you may not be able to recollect easily. So that is the intent of discussing the provisions so far. Now we will come to the very practical issues. Each one of the issue we will discuss one by one. So if anybody is not clear with that particular issues, you can please rise and I will try to answer or clarify. The first and foremost condition is that issue is that, so as I was discussing, the ongoing projects, if you want to continue under 12% with full input tax credit, one of the condition is that you have to give a declaration in Annex 4 to the commissioner. There is a cut-off date. Cut-off date is nothing but 20th May 2019. So now the question is, suppose knowingly or unknowingly, I have not given that declaration. then what will happen to that case? There, as per the notification, you default go into the 5% scheme, and you will have to reverse the input as credit, and you have to keep paying in cash. That is strictly going by notification. But somebody wants to, but if you want to continue under 12% because that is beneficial, then is there any possibility? Yes, there is a possibility. We can say that this is only procedural lapse, and me continuing under 12% scheme, I am filing GSR 3B. There I am disclosing this 12% rate and paying 12% tax. That means that is also as good as condition, intimation to the department. That is also assessment. So we can take that stand, but it is disputable. At the same time, if it is very beneficial and if you are under 12%, you end up paying only 2%, 3% in cash, there is nothing wrong in attempting this because you are going to save 2% of GST component on the overall project. So we can still attempt for 12% even though you are not given declaration. This is the sum and substance of this issue. And the another question is, sir, the builder wants to continue under old scheme, is going into new scheme, and the landowner wants to continue under old scheme, 12%, and vice versa. Builder wants to continue under old scheme, 12% and full credit because he gets lot of credit, and landowner don't want to get into old scheme because he has to maintain a lot of records and all that. He wants to take 5% from the customer and pay it off. So whether is there any effect that landowner is going for 5%, developer also has to go, or if either vice versa? There is no effect. It is totally independent. Just because developer has gone for new scheme, it is not that landowner also has to go. Vice versa also is the same. Just because landowner has gone for 5%, developer need not go for 5%. He can continue to 12%. Both are independent and independently can exercise. But government also has admitted this position, and they also clarified that it is independent. But if it is overall scheme, intention of the government is to continue both of them under a single scheme, either 12% or 5%. Though they have also admitted that there is no specific bar that each person has to go under the same scheme. Then there is another question is, suppose there is a because of 12%. There is every chance that your net cash payment would be 3% or 2%. Or some people are not at all paying in cash because they have lot of input as credit, either because of old projects or new projects, whatever it is. So most of them are beneficial if they continue under old scheme of 12% input as credit. Now the question is, right or wrong or various pressures, they've gone into 5% scheme. Now, if I go for 5% scheme, that means earlier I am paying only 2% or 1% in cash. If I go to 5% scheme, I am end up paying 5% GST. So there is a cost component, cost is increasing. So if I am not able to collect it from the extra price from the customer, if I increase my base price and collect, does it, they says that there is anti-profiteering and you are not passing on the new scheme? Answer is no. Anti-profiteering comes whenever you get any benefit because of the new scheme, because in this case you have not got any benefit because you have lose the benefit. So you can safely say that I increase because input is becoming added to my cost and I can increase, so that it can be done. Even for the regular cases also it can be done. And one more point is that suppose there is a, as I was saying, yeah.
I'm sorry, just one query.
Sure.
Whether this new scheme of 5% is mandatory for the new projects?
Yes, it is mandatory.
So it is mandatory.
It is for new projects. You have, as per the notification, it is mandatory, but it is still arguable to say that 5% is coming with some conditions, saying that you should not take input as credit, you should procure 80% and all that. It is arguable to say that if I don't meet that condition, 5% will not applicable. I have to go for 12%. That's still arguable, but as per the notification, 5% is mandatory.
In case of joint development agreement, JDA.
Joint development, I will come later, sir. There is separate slides. Please hold it. I will come later.
And when the transition happening, so I have multiple projects. For some projects I may go to 5 and others can I continue with 12%? Is that also?
Yes, yes. It is project wise.
Okay.
It is project wise. The option of continuing under 12% for ongoing projects is there. Whereas new projects, as per the government, it is mandatory. You have to go for 5% only. You have no option of going for 12%. But it is can be said that still for new projects also I can go for 12%, but it is highly disputable. And then one more point is there is a transition case where if you are for ongoing projects, if you are not continuing the old scheme and you are going to 5% scheme, there is a calculation I was saying. You have to arrive the input tax credit attributable to the old sales and see whether how much actually availed. The difference will be taken as a given as a credit. If you avail excess, you have to pay back. If you avail less, it will be given back. So now the question is, if I am going up from 1st April 2019, if I am going and paying totally in cash, and government on one hand they says you have to pay everything in cash, and on the other hand it says whatever the less availment of input tax credit for the whole sales you can take. So in that then the question comes is, then what I will do with this input tax credit? So where should I use? Because 5% scheme I can only pay, I have to pay in cash, I can't use the input tax credit. To answer this question is, if you have any other liability, suppose other than the sale of residential flats, if you have a project of commercial where you are under 12%, or if you have a lease rentals, or if you have any other business under the same GSTN in that particular state, you can utilize, there is no restriction on it. If you don't have that liability on any, or if you don't have any income, then you can't utilize anywhere. So in that case, it is advisable to go for a refund, because government themselves told whatever the less availed input tax rate you can utilize for it, but you don't have liability to utilize, you can go for refund. But most likely, most of them would be having any further liability on the lease rentals or commercial space sale and all, that can be utilized. So then one more important point, as I was saying in the beginning, they says any amount received prior to completion certificate, then it goes into the GST, and if you don't receive any amount till the date of completion certificate, then there is no GST. That means if you receive everything after completion certificate, there is no GST. That is what the impact of reading that entire schedule. Now the question comes is, what is a completion certificate? Is it a certificate given by the GHMC for allowing the people to come and occupy, or the completion certificate given by the architect is the completion certificate? So if you go by strictly the definition given under GST law as well as the GHMC provisions also, completion certificate given by the architect is sufficient to say that is the cut-off date to say that from tomorrow whatever the bookings happens, I am not liable for GST. So I need not wait till the getting of occupancy certificate. So this is the practical misnomer used by everybody. They says occupancy certificate is the cut-off date, but legally and as per the GST provisions also, completion certificate from the architect which will be submitted to the GHMC for getting the occupancy certificate is the cut-off date to say that from the bookings happened after the completion certificate, I am not liable for GST. While saying so, you should also look at you are losing any benefit of input tax credit for the ongoing projects and also for the completions project, because once you start paying your GST, you should reverse the input tax credit. That effect also you should see.
So what is the time limit for ITC, utilization of ITC?
Sorry sir?
Time limit.
Utilization of input tax credit. There is no time limit for utilization of input tax credit. Time limit is only there for available. Once it comes to your ledger, it is life. It is for life. Then there also says not only completion certificate, they also interchangeably they also says either completion certificate or first occupation, whichever is earlier. So that earliest date will be the cut-off date to say that I am not liable for GST. If I get all bookings happens after this cut-off date, will be not liable for GST. Now the question is what is first occupation? Because this is a new concept under GST. This is not there in the, at least completion certificate is there in service tax. But first occupation was not there in service tax also to prove something or other practical things. So this is a new concept under GST. But as far as the going by the practical, how we can establish this, the occupation can be established how whoever occupies, they have a basic amenities like electricity, water and gas connection. As long as those are there, those connections have come, then it is sufficient proof that there is an occupation in the project, and that is the cut-off date to say that GST is not liable on that project. So I think that large L&T decision we'll see later because there is a separate slide on it. Then this additional charges. Suppose along with the basic price, every builder will collect additional charges like preferential location, car parking, various amenities, DG set and all that. Now the question is, what I am collecting amenities is separate element. Of course, there is some elements, be it car parking, be it DG set or preferential location or WASU, etc. there. So that will be collected separately and that will be different from the regular customers. Some customers, because they are taking east facing, there will be some 200 rupees, 100 rupees per square feet, there is additional charge. Similarly, if we are taking one car parking, there will be some amount. If you are taking two car parking, there will be extra amount. And similarly, depends on like this, there are various charges will be collected from the amenities and extra charges. Here the question what I am trying to discuss here is, what is the GST rate applicable? Is the same rate of what I am paying on the sale of flat or the different rate? Because the question is difference between first and second is, in first I will get the deduction towards the land. In second component, in second case I don't get the deductions. So if you go by the component supply and liquid supply given under the classifications provisions of GST, so you can say it is component supply of sale of flat and construction of flat. So whatever the preferential location or DG set or car parking is coming along with the flat sale, so it is component supply, whatever the rate applicable, be it 5% or 1%, will be equally applicable for the additional charges. Only thing is that this also should form part of the same construction and sale of flat agreement. It should not be separately agreed. And even the government also has given a FAQ saying that yes, whatever the rate applicable to normal sales will be applicable. Only as usual the advance rulings are against and they said you have to pay 18%. And also like amenities, what I am saying, there is also collection from the advance maintenance will be collected by the builder. So they says first 2 years till the formation of society, association, the builder will be doing the maintenance. Now if you see many states like including I think AP also there is the Apartment Act is there before ERA. So there says till the formation of society or association, the builder has to maintain the project and he has to ensure that building is maintained with common area is maintained by himself, so that it is clean and it is as per the environmental conditions. So here builder, if you see, if you have experience of collecting apart from basic price, amenities, and also you also collect amount towards the advance maintenance. Now if you see, now the question is, am I collecting because to do a maintenance or to do a statutory function? So there is a Bombay code where they said it is nothing but a to a statutory obligation. So whatever they are doing is nothing but part of statutory obligation. So it is not part of service and they should not pay any GST. It will be paid only by the association, not by the builder. That is the decision is there. So if anybody is not paying GST on that maintenance charges, they can take advantage of this. Otherwise, it is advisable to pay and avoid these disputes. And next important is the corpus fund. So similar to amenities and 2 years advance maintenance, will also be collecting corpus fund. This is again very frequent amount collected by every builder because it is also mandatory. So they have to collect a corpus and capital fund, which should not be utilized by the builder. It should be transferred to the association once it is formed. So this is nothing but the capital expenditure fund. So here if you see, unlike maintenance, unlike amenities, the builder is not allowed to utilize this amount. Legally you should not utilize, you should keep it in a separate bank account. So thereby you can say corpus fund is nothing but I am acting as a trustee in the capacity of trustee and I am acting as a fiduciary capacity. So I should not be liable for any GST on the corpus fund received because this will be in total as is transferred to the society once it is formed. So we can, in fact there is a tribunal decision in case of various anti-builders that can be referred. And various charges like stamp duty, legal documentation and all, as long as we have collected actuals, we can say that it is pure agent, there is no GST. If you have not collected actuals and you are not able to prove with the documents, then it is advisable to collect and pay GST on it. And various freebies given along with sale of flats. So to encourage sales, sometimes people may announce that lucky people will get a car or they will do a marble kitchen and all that. There is some schemes will be announced. There again, because it is done along with the sale of flat, So we can say that will not be, that will not have any different treatment. The treatment whatever there for the sale of flat will have an equal treatment even in this case also. And as far as additional works also, as I was saying, any additions, generally this will happen at the time of handing over. So customer says, why don't you do interiors for me, because you have all manpower here, instead of me going for somewhere and experimenting, you do it. So there the question comes is, what rate should I pay? Should I pay the 5% or should I pay the 18%? So to answer this, if it is this additions work or modifications work, if it is part of the sale agreement of sale or sale deed entered with the customer, then the 5% 1% will apply. If it is separate agreement, that means if there is separate work order is taken independent of the agreement of sale or sale deed, then 18% has to be paid. Then regarding valuation, I think 1/3 land is that we will collect separately. Then yeah, in case of villa also there is a planning possible where what you can do is suppose you are selling unlike in apartments where you sell land only in undivided portion. You can't divide the land and you sell only undivided portion. Whereas in case of villa there is a advantage, you sell the land separately and you can sell the construct the villa separately. So there is a possibility to say to split the agreement, to say that the land and the semi-finished as a one agreement, and it is goes completely out of GST, and say that there is no service here. What is service is only construction. I pay GST on only on 18%. That possibility is there, whereas which is may not be there in the flat constructions. So hope I am clear on this villa sales.
One doubt. In case of that agreement 1% on affordable houses, 5% on under.
Okay.
So there is a mix of the 5% and 1% of the project.
Okay.
There is a gated community.
In single project you are saying?
In single project.
In single projects you have a flats which are affordable as well as non-affordable. Okay.
How to justify that one?
So it is all your agreements with the customer. So if your agreement with the customer fulfills that criteria of sale consideration being below 45 lakhs and also area below 60 square meter if it is metro, that is Hyderabad. If it is non-metro, 90 square meter. Both the ingredients, both the factors are available in the agreements with the customer. If you show to that any officer whoever coming and verifying, that is sufficient.
Land
It
wise
is,
you can say.
yes, fact wise you can take.
You can take.
It is not that project wise, this affordable, non-affordable, it is flat wise. In fact, if your affordable housing in that particular project exceeds 50%, there is one concession is also available, where you contract the center construction work to some contractor. Generally, the contractor charges GST at 18%. If it is in a project, the affordable houses are more than 50%, then that rate will come down to 12%. That concession is also available additionally.
For construction.
Hmm.
In the case of commercial sales, the 12%, is anti-profiting income passing the input tax benefit to customers,
12%. So, sir, I'll put it like this. Anti-profiting is not a standalone law which has to apply. We also have to see the various dynamics. In fact, that is one of the questions which I asked the commissioner to address, because he is also one of the this anti-profiting committee member in Telangana. So he'll elaborate. But to cut short, anti-profiting may attract, but if you are able to prove that this increase or decrease of the price is attributable to market conditions, there is a slump in the market or there is a rise in the market, we can get out of the anti-profiting.
In case of villas, you explained if you separate the land and construction. In case of construction, how much GST?
18%.
18%.
If you are because you are separating land, that will become 18% if it is commercial, it is ongoing as an under old scheme. If it is you are under new scheme, you can take 7.5%. 7.5% on the only construction agreement. Provided you ensure while doing that, so we have to be very careful. You should not interlink the land sale agreement and construction work order. If you are interlinked, you are gone, because it is both are not independent, it is interdependent. So both will be treated as a single transaction and they will ask 5% on total value. that we have to be careful in that case. And whatever the discounts, so to put it simply, whatever the discounts you give it to customer, be it because of various schemes or market for and all that, if it is there in the agreement, if it is written at least saying open clause saying that discounts may be allowed at the mutual discussion of the parties or so and so exceptional circumstances, that is sufficient to deduct the value and pay net of the discounts only. That is only requirement is that you ensure that the clause of giving discount should come in the agreements. Otherwise they can distribute it. And then cancellation, this is again another practical prevalent issue. What will happen, customer comes in 2019 and he books the flat and he keeps paying GST and advances. And after 2-3 years, so various reasons, either rise in the market, or he wants to invest this money into somewhere, or he wants money, or that he cancels the booking. That will happen, suppose it is happening within the year. If it is happening within the year, it is fine, because what we'll do, we'll give a credit note and whatever the GST paid so far will be adjusted for the other liability. Suppose it is not happening within the next September of next financial year, because that is the credit time limit to give credit note and adjust the GST paid earlier. Then how this can be adjusted? So if you ask me, as per the provisions, issue of credit note and adjustment is only allowed up to September of the next financial year. If any cancellation happen after that, as per there is no clear cut answer, but still we can say that because nothing but the cancellation happened for the prior transaction, either we can ask customer to go for a refund or we can also go for a refund. And there is another important issue here, is that it is not that cancellation happened, you return total money, you only return the 98% or 90%, some portion you will keep it. That means that is nothing but a cancellation charges. Then how this GST has to be paid on this cancellation charges is another important point. So first question is, should I pay GST on this cancellation charges or not? So to answer this, my view is that it is not liable, because it is nothing but a damages for the breach of contract. There is no supply of service or goods happened, so it is not liable for GST. Suppose if you want to pay GST also, there is again the dispute from the department. Why? That's the reason I am highlighting this. If people, what they do is, okay, suppose there is some portion was retained from the whatever paid. Suppose he has paid 1 crore. I am only returning the 90 lakhs. That means 10 lakhs was retained. This is nothing but the cancellation charges. Now the question is, the builder thinks, okay, 10 lakhs I don't want to refund. At the same time, anyway 10 lakhs is gone, I don't give it back. So, but department says the 10 lakhs you are not, finally you are not collected end up for the construction or sale, because you collected from the damages. You pay GST not at 5%, you pay 18%. That dispute is also they have raised. But going by the law, first of all, GST is not liable on this cancellation charges at all. Even if you pay at 5%, that will be sufficient discharge of the GST. In the ITC, I think we are having separate slides now. We'll come later as per the ITC. Yeah, 80% we discussed. The one more point, one of the conditions for 5% or 1% scheme is that you should procure 80% of your procurements from registered persons. Now the question is it project wise or company wise? To answer this, it is project wise, and it is again project, it is not whole of the life of the project, it is year wise. That means every year in every project you should ensure that 80% of the procurements you make from the registered persons under GST. So if any shortfall is there, the balance amount will be liable under reverse charge. So there practically the problem is most of the practical problem also. So you procure some cement bags or you procure some steel. So you make some common procurement. You also don't know till it gets dispatched which project it goes. Whether it goes for a project at high-tech city or it goes for north side of the city. You also don't know. So that practical difficulty is there. But as per the law, you are expected to maintain a separate records, at least stock records, to understand where this particular goods or material is going, and record accordingly and ensure that this 80% condition is fulfilled. plotting will take, no? So I think now Mitresh will cover a few tax planning aspects as well as the plotting issues. Of course, I'll also be joining.